Thank you, Rob. Thank you for the opportunity to be with you. So yes, we at republican.org are out to convince conservatives this conservative act on climate change. Focus particularly on American conservatives. And so here's what we tell them. There are three ways to fix climate change. One is you can regulate emissions. That would work here in America. You know, the EPA could regulate emissions. It would clean up local air. We'd have fewer asthma cases, longer life expectancy. Things would be pretty good here. There's an obvious problem, even if you're not as conservative as we are and have all this red on the site, isn't there, with that first approach, which is you can't regulate, say, Chinese emissions from here in America. So conservatives that we talk to immediately reject that solution because they say, what the heck? You can regulate here, they don't regulate there. Manufacturers pick up and move from here to there. They emit more when they get there than they were emitting here. Literally, because of the greater carbon intensity of the energy production in China than it is here. You just went downhill on solving climate change. So that's the first step, first way you solve it. Second way to fix climate change is to incentivize clean energy. That's something we've now done in the Inflation Reduction Act, the most misnamed act ever.
Yes.
Too cute by half. You know, if sometimes you think it's really cute to name something and then it has very little to do with inflation, had everything to do with some very powerful clean energy incentives that are pretty clearly going to work. Because I believe the private sector estimates show how it's going to work. They say that it's going to cost the Treasury 2 or 3x what the Biden administration says it's going to cost for those tax incentives. What that tells me is those private sector folks are saying, by golly, those are powerful incentives. I mean, if you put a ring in the nose of an American corporation, you can lead them around through the American tax code. You can tell them, you want this credit? We'll do this. And you can just drop the money right off your bottom line, what we would otherwise be paying to the federal treasury, keep it. And so you can powerfully incentivize American corporations, tax-paying entities, by the American tax code. Here's the challenge. This is what we tell conservatives as we travel around. Can you incentivize a Chinese corporation through the American tax code? No, they don't pay American taxes. So that credit is worthless to them. So all those incentives may end you up in the same spot as solution number one, the regulatory solution, which is this clean energy incentive solution may mean that you clean up local air here in America. We'll have wind turbines and hopefully a lot of solar and hopefully some new nuclear and hopefully some hydrogen. There's a lot of hopefully in that list I was just saying. But if they work, great. We're going to clean up local air. We're going to be breathing better here in rich America. This can be great. But we're not solving climate change yet. Now, the best retort to that is, yeah, but early adoption here is going to bring the price of that technology down, and it's going to be affordable worldwide. To which I say, hope so, don't know so. Because, for example, if you take the power production sector, there may be only 20 or 30,000 firms in the whole world that make electricity for customers. Relatively small market. You don't usually get dramatic cost crashes in small markets. Contrast that with the cell phone that you have in your pocket. 8 billion people would like to have one of those. That's a mass market. And in mass markets, competitors go after the market, bring down their price, cut their margins, and sell based on volume. So we might have here boutique pricing in a very relatively small market, for example, in that power production sector. So the price of all that technology I was just talking about in the Inflation Reduction Act that will be deployed here in America, I believe it will be. The question is whether Madagascar can afford it. One of those small modular nukes, for example, or some of the more sophisticated equipment that's going to be deployed as a result of the, say, the hydrogen parts to the Inflation Reduction Act. So a third solution, you can tell which I favor, having dissed politely number one, number two, the regulatory solution, the clean energy incentive solution, is clearly a pricing of carbon dioxide. And that's assumed to be really hard. And politically it is hard. But what I can tell you is, in front of a lot of conservative audiences, if you give me 10 minutes, that's the key. Give me 10 minutes. I can get them to the place of maybe remembering Milton Friedman. Maybe remembering to sort of bow at the mention of his name. Milton Friedman is sort of the father of modern conservatism. I'm aware that many in my party are not conservatives. They're populist nationalists, they are not conservatives. But if there are few conservatives left, a remnant of conservatism left in the Republican Party, then we have a chance of reaching them. Because if you go to our website, for example, we got this great clip of Milton Friedman on the Phil Donahue show in the 1980s. I'm looking around to see anybody old enough to remember Phil Donahue. Okay, if you're too young to remember Phil Donahue, it's basically a white guy doing an Oprah Winfrey show. Dr. Friedman, one of Reagan's economics advisors, used to get on debate with Phil. What do you do about pollution then, Dr. Friedman, if you don't want to regulate it? Friedman says, you tax it. You tax pollution. And then he goes on to explain that you can't let two people, it's a great clip, you can see it on our website. It's back there behind me. Underneath the resources tab, you'll find this clip of Dr. Friedman saying, when two people do something in a contract that affects a third party, the government, and Phil challenged him, says, you mean the government? He says, yes, the government. This is the libertarian Milton Friedman saying the government has to step in and stop those two people from harming that third party. And so it's all kinds of ways you could reach conservatives on that. Maybe they remember Milton Friedman, maybe they don't. Maybe they're of a faith frame, in which case you can ask, is it moral? Is it right in any teaching of any known religion that two people can do something that dumps on a third party? Answer, no. Is it in any economist's package of belief or information that you can allow that to happen without having a market distortion? No. Everybody from Paul Krugman to Greg Mankiw would agree with that you can't let that happen. You have a market distortion that means that technology and innovation is slowed because these two people are getting away with it. That's really all we talk about at republican.org. And now, there are probably economists in the room, and normally I give a longer presentation that would involve my whole big story and how I got to this epiphany and all that. But I just shorten it up for you because you're a sophisticated group. Is all we talk about is internalizing negative externalities. I once said that to a reporter for the Greenville News when I represented Greenville, Spartanburg Union, a little bit of Lawrence County in the U.S. Congress. The guy stopped me and said, "What'd you say?" I said, "We need to internalize the negative externalities." He said, "I can't write that in this paper, man. We write at the 7th grade level." I said, "Reveal the hidden cost." Next day it said in the paper, Inglis said that we need to reveal the hidden cost of burning of fossil fuels. Same thing. I mean, that works. If you're an economist, apologies for calling it side effects. But I got a marketing guy that every time I say, that helps us with all this stuff, every time I say internalizing negative externalities, he says, "What'd you say? I don't even know what you're talking about." And so he's taught me to say just side effects. The side effects of the burning of fossil fuels. That's what we need to bring accountability for. And in whatever frame you're operating, whether you're standing in front of conservatives that are in a faith frame, that makes sense. Because people of faith fundamentally believe that accountability brings blessings. Lack of accountability results in havoc. Climate change is that havoc. Or if you're standing in front of the economics club, well, all you got to say there is internalize the negative externalities, and they all with you. And so then the question is how you do that. And by the way, there's another political argument that we make, which is, it's like this, fellow conservatives. America will take something over nothing when they decide they've got a problem. We better come up with something because they are deciding they've got a problem with climate change. And so you can answer it whatever level you want to go to, like a high or deep level of faith, or sort of an economic frame, or in a frame of just pure politics. Like tonight I'll be speaking by Zoom to Utah college Republicans. Tomorrow another college Republican Zoom. And I may go right quickly to that political argument with them. But the good news for everybody else in this room is that those young conservatives want action on climate change as much as young progressives do. And that is why you start seeing some change among Republicans in Congress. And we have seen some change. I got tossed out of Congress in 2010, a Republican primary here in this district, for various heresies. Voting for the Troubled Asset Relief Program, President Bush's rescue of the banks, being for comprehensive immigration reform, although we never called it that. Voting against a troop surge in Iraq because I had concerns that my friend George W. Bush is doing nation building in Iraq. So I wrote an op-ed about gay marriage that didn't go over very well in favor of it. And then, but my most enduring heresy was just saying climate change is real, let's do something about it. That's what got me branded as this guy that's against us and not part of us. And so those were the dark days of the Great Recession. I mean, October of 2008, the wheels are coming off the financial system. And so we knew the 10 cycle here in the 4th District would be hard, but it was very hard. And people were really hurting. Houses were underwater financially, jobs were at risk, the banking system had failed. We were really in trouble. But here's the good news. Things have gotten a lot better on the climate front among Republicans, because there are some long-term thinkers, or long time horizon Republicans, those who want to win successive elections, who see those young conservatives coming, who want action on climate change. Meanwhile, there's one guy in particular in my party who wants to eke out just one more election. He apparently plans on doubling down on climate disputation because he's got a very short time horizon. But these longer time horizon folks, they realize, hey, you got to get with it on this thing. And so how you do it, because it is crazy. How in the world would you price in the effects of carbon dioxide? Well, it's a carbon tax, which is hard to do domestically. But give me 10 minutes with those conservatives. And I'll ask them, in your town, you have a tipping fee at the dump? Yeah, you got a tipping fee at the dump. Trash haulers have to pay based on weight, the stuff they're bringing into the dump. It's a user fee. Makes a whole lot of sense. Whether you're a progressive or a conservative, that's just total good sense. Same thing about the trash dump at the sky. Let's just charge a tipping fee. But if you're a conservative, here's the deal. How about a carbon tax cut? We're going to cut some existing tax, and we're going to replace it with carbon tax revenue. The one that I'd pick is a payroll tax. There's somebody in McDonald's not far from here, right over that way. She's maybe working her second or third job at McDonald's. She's currently paying 12.4% payroll tax at that job. 6.2 her that she sees on her check in the FICA box, 6.2 the McDonald's Corporation pays. It's a whopping 12.4% tax on her second or third job. So how about we reduce that tax? put on a carbon tax instead. Okay, so let's say it's $30 per ton price on carbon dioxide. That's a relatively low carbon price, steadily rising presumably. Let's say it starts at $30 a ton. Her gas price goes up by 30 cents a gallon. Her electricity cost in the average home goes up by $11 a month. That's bad news for her, right? She's working a second or third job, barely getting by, and now we're telling her 30 cents a gallon, $11 a month. But we just cut her payroll taxes. And now she's got some thinking she could do. Turn down the thermostat. She can put plastic on the windows this winter. She can drive less. According to the Congressional Budget Office, if you do that tax swap off payroll tax on carbon, the bottom 70% of Americans do better. It's only the top 30% do worse. Big houses, heated pools, corporate jets, whatever. But we're at Republican.org, we're for freedom. If you have a heated pool, have us over in January for a pool party. But once you start paying the true cost of heating that pool, because the side effects are now on your meter, you're probably going to drain that pool in Greenville in January. But fill it up in May and have us over at that point for a pool party, right? But we want you to make that choice because we're with Milton Friedman. You make it so the consumer sees that price, they will respond. And so here's the real kicker though. That's domestically, it's a carbon tax cut. That's what I tell conservatives is we're going to reduce taxes somewhere else. We're going to put a tax on carbon dioxide. It's no growth of government. It's actually untaxing something. And another thing you'll see on that resources tab is a video of Art Laffer, another one of Reagan's advisors, in a 2-minute conversation with me saying, I don't know about climate change. He said, I don't know whether it's real or not, but all I need to know, he says, is you're taxing income. Tax anything else. CO2 will do. And he says, just change what you tax. And so that's what we do in 10 minutes. But let me also add this. Here's the real kicker. The thing that will make this go worldwide, and so much better than the regulatory or the clean energy solution, is that you can do a carbon border adjustment mechanism at that point. And it would be enforceable at the World Trade Organization. And that would bring China into compliance. Why? Because it'd be in their interest to do the same carbon tax. Because they'd otherwise be paying an American carbon tax on entry of their goods coming to Walmart here in America that they could have collected themselves. So you have this upheld by the World Trade Organization, and I'm pretty sure that China, 24 hours later, because they do have an amazing way of reaching consensus in China, 24 hours later, they'd have the same carbon tax. Why? Well, they just paid on entry of those goods coming to Walmart an American carbon tax that they could have collected themselves. The tax money would then be in Beijing, and the goods would come to Walmart with no adjustment. So it's in their interest to do the same thing. And the beautiful thing is we're about to have a test case of this. The European Union is about to teach us in America that this is a possibility. Because right now, if you're Nucor Steel in the lower part of South Carolina and you're sending steel to Europe, you have to document how much, starting this year, you have to document how much CO2 is emitted in the production of that steel. Starting in 2026, you're going to have to buy European credits for those emissions. And so Nancy Mace is going to get a call. Nancy Mace, 1st District Congresswoman, is going to get a call from Nucor Steel saying, hey, Nancy, do you realize that we're getting ready to pay a tax, essentially carbon tariff tax, to Europe that you could have collected here, and it makes no difference to us, Nucor, or to our customers? Light bulbs go on in the U.S. Capitol. What? We could get that money? But then the Klieg lights come on when they realize, oh my gosh, you can do that to China. And then you get the Congress of the United States realizing that, wow, I can go tell conservatives that we're going to do exactly this. We're going to do a carbon tax, and China's going to pay it. You can almost hear that one guy saying, right? Is that it puts it in that language of saying, no, we're going to get the world in on this thing. Because I will tell you, early on in our effort, it was aggressive disbelief about climate action. I believe in climate change, you shouldn't either. Now it's very different. It's, tell me how you get the world in on this thing. And we think the answer is that third solution, not the regulatory, not the clean energy incentive, but the pricing mechanism that goes worldwide. Let me stop there since I'm done.